Reapered, the coach of 100 Thieves, the reigning LCS champions, previously worked with teams like EDG and Cloud9, Edward Gaming, obviously not the one that now won Worlds, the team many, many moons ago, the one that won MSI. In my opinion, has one of the best minds ever for League of Legends. I know people might go, what do you mean? Didn't you always criticise him and stuff? No. I always said, I think Reapered is actually, I don't use this word that often, a kind of genius as a coach. A draft genius, even. The way he puts teams together is very impressive. I think, I always said this to him. I even told him to doubt his face as banter. He didn't really get it fully as a joke, though. I've always said, I think he's the best regular season coach maybe the West and LCS certainly has ever seen. Look how incredible his track record is. And how his teams just basically can't miss the playoffs. He's unbelievable no matter who he's working with. My problem always was, I think he gets a bit too cute and tries to 200 IQ himself when he gets to game 5 of a big playoff game or in certain finals. I think he did this. So my only issue is I think he sometimes does see himself as like an anime protagonist and he's trying to make the like next level fucking Kikaku or whatever. By the way, Kikaku translator's note means plan. So this is the thing. He is also, as well as being a fabulous general coach in the West, unusually successful working with and building teams around the junglers that he has. This actually makes me think, hence the reason I made this video, that he has some kind of special affinity specifically for the jungle role, or knows how to use them and knows how they see the map and therefore can sort of put them in the position where they can actually thrive, even though the very different playing styles of jungle we're talking about here. So if you want to go way back in time, in EDG, to be fair, we didn't have as much publicity around coaches back then. So even though Reapered joined EDG before MSI, joined in late April, because Aaron, the former coach of WE, was the head coach, all the focus went to Aaron. In fact, I remember people giving him all the credit for MSI, etc. But supposedly, like a fan told me this in the description actually of the video I made about SKT when they won MSI beating SKT. There's a comment you can go read there. I'll read out in a second. But I remember this story actually once he tells me it sparks my memory. And I'll just read it out what he says here, because if you remember, they did do like a big stream once with Monty and Dor, and they brought Reapered as a guest. So here's what he says. He says, unfortunately, there's a piece of lost media here that may explain why some people think it was all planned by EDG, the draft. I think in November of that same year when IEM was happening, Monte Cristo was watching the games with Dora and other people from LCK. I think Pappy Smithy was maybe there, maybe like Achilles or something, on stream. One of the days he brought Reapered as a special guest at a time when he'd left EDG and was rumoured to go to Cloud9. So then he's going to reveal some information. And Monty asked him about the LeBlanc pick from Faker in the MSI final. From what I remember, Reapered did say they had prepared Morgana as a specific counter pick in case Faker was left with LeBlanc. Besides the whole reasons people gave at the time for why Morg could neutralise LeBlanc, Black Shield are being used immediately after LeBlanc goes in, wave clear with W. Reapered also mentioned that Morg E at the time made Signal of Malice, LeBlanc Q, mark not appear, so besides blocking the magic damage, it also denied that extra bit of burst by popping the mark. Overall, anyway, right, you get the point. So the point is, Reapered potentially was involved with the theory crafting, how they were going to do this and why and what did they do. So you can already see, even in that scenario, right, he's already a thinker having influence. But what people forget is this. The pick everyone forgets from that match, which was essential, was Evelynn, a clear love signature, and one where you're obviously invisible on the map, and so you can get amazing ganks off, can't you? And at this point in his career, admittedly, yes, he'd already played season 4, with EDG as well, which was a different style of team. I think this is when you saw maybe the best Clear Love ever. This was when Clear Love, listen, he was fantastic in like season 3 as a farming jungler, more like the old school original Meteos. But in this particular period, he became a massive ganker. He started ganking all over the place. Like even the team in season 4 was a little bit more of a late game team with Nami. By the time they got to season 5, he'd already started to work it in season 4. By the time in season 5, he was doing some fantastic amounts of ganks. A lot more map pressure. Looked like he actually understood, like I can't just farm up all the time. And in the teams that he was in, you needed him to do that sometimes. So I think this is when you saw maybe the best Clear Love in terms of what people wanted him to be as an international jungler. And what's this? He won an international tournament. People forget that, he was hard stuck at Worlds. He won MSI though. Then obviously Reapered left that team. He was only like some sort of a coaching staff member anyway. And in 2016, I think it was after the spring, he came to Cloud9 and he remained there until the end of the summer split of 2020, so quite a few years. Now, his first jungler was Meteos, who, if you remember, had come back to Cloud9 because they'd had that whole thing where they'd had High, because they'd had Rosh. They had this whole clusterfuck of what happened with the junglers in Cloud9, if you remember. So Meteos at this point was almost like reclaimed. And people actually were wondering, like, is he going to be any good at this point in time? This was when he got flamed quite a lot. But I'll tell you what, considering he got flamed, I thought he was just a little bit off and maybe he had to like get adapted to the new players like Jensen. They still finished second in summer, won the regional, and made top 8 at Worlds, losing to Samsung, who went to the final and almost won Worlds. Like, I think, again, you look at the PCs working with rookie Jensen, like, this is legit as fuck, boys. So, okay, then we go over... Actually, is that even true? Let me think. No, it doesn't make any sense at all. Why did I say... Wait a minute. Why did I say rookie Jensen there? Because that would be season 5. Right, that's wrong anyway. So it wasn't rookie, but anyway... He was working with Jensen as well, who I will say can be a more difficult player and certainly has a very, I would say, a very set way about how he wants the jungler to play, which I think was actually one of the issues previously when Meteos was in the team. In fact, that was the point I was going to make. Yes, they'd had Meteos, then it hadn't worked out with him and Jensen, so they'd brought in High to be the jungler, and they'd gone to Worlds that previous year. So essentially, they were able to go to Worlds and come second and win regional with Meteos this time around and Jensen. Then, who did they have the next year? Well, if you know your history, you'll know it was Contracts, right? The guy who was more recently playing in Evil Geniuses as a sub. Now, this was his rookie LCS season in Season 7. And yet, in the spring split, he was the rookie of the split. And he was second team All-Pro in the summer. The team finished second in spring and finished top 6, so just made the playoffs in summer. They won the regionals and they went to Worlds. At Worlds, they made top 8 again. This time, they lost in 5 games to WE, who had been the spring LPL champions. Actually, it was a pretty epic series. They could have won it potentially, but WE had better players. After this, Contracts was basically... he was let go, wasn't he? He wasn't in the team anymore. And quite frankly, he was never as good, never showed as much potential as this. This is when people really thought Contracts might actually end up being one of the best junglers in LCS. Hence why he was second team All-Pro in the summer. People were super hyped like this, almost like they are for Blaber now, except the difference is the eye test wasn't there for Contracts like that. He looked all right, or he looked promising. But again, he had all winning lanes, etc., blah, blah, blah. You get the point. Then, of course, we have the infamous Svenskeren, don't we? Now, what people are forgetting is, when Reapered gets Svenskeren for Season 8, he has all that TSM baggage. He's had that period where he's been disempowered. Everyone's joked that he's a ward for Bjergsen, that he's the reason they lost all the worlds, etc. People forget this because they'll go, what are you talking about? He's a champion already, Thorin. Oh, he'd already been like a top player. No, in Season 7, the year before we're talking about right now, Svenskeren didn't get a single All-Pro nomination for either splits, and TSM won both of them. Like, that's actually mind-blowing. By the way, I would agree if you go look how Svenskeren was playing. But normally, if you're going to be like the top team in the league, especially if you're later go on and win the league, you're just going to get an easy 1 or 2 on that one. Basically, the whole league's sort of saying, we think you really suck. So then he comes over to Cloud9 and Reaper, and how does it go? Well, in spring, he is third team All-Pro, and then in summer, he didn't actually get anything. Now, the team finished top 6 in spring because unfortunately they ran straight into Team Liquid, who had their own whack reason for being in that round of the playoffs. And then in the summer they lost to Team Liquid again, but this time in the final, so they finished second. Blaber swapped in at times. It was his rookie split, and he actually won rookie of the split for this one in summer. They tested out Blaber a little bit at Season 8 Worlds early on, but it looked like that was like hit and miss, and he wasn't experienced enough, so they took Svenskeren back for most of the games, and they finished top 4 at Worlds. By the way, to date, the best performance ever by an NA team in terms of placing at Worlds. Still holds to this day. Now in Season 9, the next year, Svenskeren was second team All-Pro in the spring. He was the MVP of the whole summer LCS, and as a result, first team All-Pro in the summer. The team finished third in spring and second in summer, losing in 5 games. Team Liquid almost won the LCS straight up. Jensen had an epic clutch performance, if people remember. They went to Worlds, but they had a poor performance. They were in the one, if you remember, where they had Griffin and, what are they called now? Invictus Gaming in their group. And if you remember, they tried bringing in Blaber at some of the games, because apparently he'd been like dominating scrims and Svenskeren had been doing badly. That wasn't going well either, but they didn't work well with Svenskeren either, and just didn't get out of groups. After this, Svenskeren, unsurprisingly, was let go. Blaber comes in as the full-time starter, and I've got to say, again, I don't know if Svenskeren ever looked as good as he did in that summer of Season 9 when he was the MVP of the league. He was a fantastic player, just like he had a complete control of the game. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was mega comfortable. Meanwhile, you only have to go a couple of years earlier, like I said, in TSM, and this guy was essentially mentally destroyed. Like, I think he would have been on the trash heap if Cloud9 hadn't reclaimed him, essentially. So we come to the Blaber period, right? Another player like a Contracts was coming up. So he starts in season 10. I suspect, based on the story about Worlds and subbing him in the past year, that 2 years earlier, especially in terms of using him early at Worlds, I suspect that actually Reaper always fucked with Blaber's mentality and liked the way he saw the game and stuff, and was trying to sort of test him, bed him in, see when he could use him properly. Probably because he looked like he had a very high ceiling mechanically. He was very aggressive, super decisive. If you're actually a coach, you love all those qualities. Those are the things that you want in other players that are very good, or to bring those aspects out. And it's hard to. It's really tough to make a player who's naturally passive or cautious or conservative really aggressive. It's really hard to make a player that wants to think a lot through everything and make the correct decision. It's hard to get him to just make a snap decision and follow his intuition. It's really tough to get a player who's just all around good at the game and keeps his game at a high level to then suddenly improve his mechanics and become one of the best mechanical players in the world. It's incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible. So I always tell this story on talk shows, but I'll repeat it here. To me, this is like the story when Kobe Bryant was on the Lakers in the 90s and Phil Jackson joined as the coach in 99 at the end of the 99 season. And basically, in an early practice, some assistant coach told Phil Jackson, like, we're going to have to sort of rein in Kobe, though, and he like shoots too much, takes overage, breaks the system. Like, we can't allow that. We should just like ban him from doing some stuff, or we should just like rein him in and tell him, like, don't do that or bench him more. And Phil Jackson actually said, no, that's not what you do at all, because he's like a wild Mustang. Like, he's got all this spirit and this strength and power, and we want to channel some of that. But if you break his spirit, you lose that strength, that power, that spirit, that essence. So if you ever crush him like that, you never want to do that. You want to find a way to channel it into the way you want to do things. What I've always tried to stress with people who are toxic, I tried to explain to them ways they could help their teammates, or explain their perspective to their teammate, or see something that they couldn't understand from their perspective, but that their teammate was seeing about the game or the way they competed or communicated. So he obviously had some sort of, he was just eye to eye with Blaber, wasn't he? And what do you know? In his first split under him, Blaber is the MVP when he's the first time as a proper starter. He was a first team All-Pro, unsurprisingly, and in summer he was first team All-Pro as well. In the spring they won the LCS, first LCS championship for Reapered, sadly online. In summer they finished fourth, still decent, but unfortunately they were supposed to win again and they didn't get to go to Worlds as a result. Quite frankly, I don't think if you look at Blaber, he ever has fit Cloud9 as well as when Reapered had him. When he had Perks, who by the way, Perks' jungles have won MVP all the time throughout his career. Somehow Blaber looked way worse for Perks, didn't connect with Perks as well, didn't connect with the rest of the team on the map, looked lost in some of the metas at times. Like, he looked a lot better when he had Reapered behind him. So then we come to 100 Thieves, because you know what? After this failure to go to Worlds, out goes Reapered finally, and in he comes to 100 Thieves, but he didn't come in straight away. He sat out the spring split, and they joined for the summer. The team only went and won the split, by the way, something their org had never done, and he did it with players where none of them had ever won the split. Like, this is incredible stuff. So the finals MVP was Closer, his jungler, who was third team All-Pro as well. And quite frankly, if you remember when he was in Golden Guardians, it used to be the bad Golden Guardians, he was 1v9 in, like, and then he was pretty good when he was in the one that almost went to Worlds. But then you come to this period, in the spring in 100 Thieves, he actually looked a lot more subdued. He looked like he was trying to play more like team jungle style. He wasn't this like super aggro. He wasn't basically like the mechanical beast that you think of as Closer. You think of Closer, you think of him just tearing people up like he was in that final against Team Liquid. He wasn't really that player until, quite frankly, Reapered got in the mix. Whatever he did with the team, suddenly as the playoffs went on, Closer was just powering up, and in the finals, he was unbeatable. Like, Thorin couldn't do shit against him. He looked like an absolute joke. It's like when you watch, like, a pretty good defender in the NFL, like, cornerback, trying to cover, like, the absolute best fucking wide receiver. Like, they just get torn up, don't they? Doesn't matter that they almost as good, almost ain't enough, except in fucking, what is it, this thing Americans have? It's in it, like, horseshoes and hand grenades or something. So, Reapered's aptitude here, I think, comes from when he was a player. Like, I'll put an article in the description below, one of my favourite profile pieces I've done about his philosophy. You have to remember, Reapered was a top lane shot caller. Think how unique that is already. And was famous for, like, amazing map rotations and moving around to towers, objectives, back when people used to just play lane and just try to win lane, win game, and just team fight when they weren't in lane. Then, later in his career, he role swapped to play jungle. He played it in the spring NLB in Season 3, 2013, and the summer split. He also later, by the way, swapped to be a mid laner at one point in time. So if you think about it, between being a top laner, a shot caller, and a jungler, he's got to have a fantastic idea of what a jungler needs to do, how how they see the map, how they need to play the map, what they need to do to set up lanes. Remember, he was the laner, and he was the jungler, and he was the coach now. Like, this guy's had an incredible full spectrum view of what jungle does in the game. Then he's worked with Chinese junglers like Clearlove. He's worked with Koreans like fucking Helios. He's worked with Americans. He's worked with Europeans. The guy's worked with everyone. He's been all over this place. So he's got a fantastic sense for the game and how people are doing it. Then add in, he not only has the Korean jungling understanding, but Reapered, as I point out in that article, was a very unique Korean. He wasn't really like the sort of homogenous Korean who wants to stick to like the limited narrow spectrum of like what like mainstream culture is and all. This is what we're all doing. They're a very homogenous culture in many ways. Reapered's an outsider in that regard. And you know what? That like innovative, creative, outside of the box style of thinking, or even willingness to think that way, I think gives him a very unique skill set that you just don't get from the other Korean coaches. So if you think about his junglers, they seem to play at their best under Reapered. Like they seem to fit their team the best and then reach their individual career peak playing under Reapered. I'd ask you this question at the end of the video. Which jungler did he ever fail with? That's some food for thought. I'll tell you what's drink for thoughts. This Thorin Thoughts Cup, some Gamer Subs at GG. You can fill it with any drink, including delicious Gamer Subs. That proprietary energy formula, Thorin, Thorin, at Gamer Subs at GG.
This is LS, and you're on Thorin's YouTube channel, so cut the Western shit.